Good evening, everyone. K2 Space raises $500 million to build big satellites. Rocket Lab secures a multi-launch deal with IQPS. Space Force awards All Points, company I've never heard of, $250 million to expand satellite processing at Vandenberg. Now, this is a twofer story. A Falcon 9 stage is going to be crashing on the moon on Wednesday, and South Korea's Danuri lunar orbiter intends to record it. Brutal irony of the day, engineers have a plan to save the satellite that was launched to save NASA's SWIFT mission. Trump administration gives Starlink a pass on an FCC ban on import of foreign-made routers. An update on the Interlunar Vermeer deal for lunar construction. Meanwhile, after that, CASA and NASA say, hold our beer. DARPA plans to shrink nuclear power to the size of a AA battery. My God, I can see every smartphone maker wanting this, but recycling might be a bitch. Florida gubernatorial frontrunner Byron Donalds promises a booming space economy if elected. We'll look into that. And AI claims it's ready to operate spacecraft, but is the industry ready for it? All that and our guest, Yok-Chi Chan. From the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. As you know, this podcast is brought to you by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. Who are we? What do we do? We champion and strengthen emerging space startups and space-adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory access and advocacy. Our legendary pitch events and world-class boot camps fortify startups to be better investor-ready. In addition, this podcast, which has become a crown jewel of all our activities, is still largely supported by our listeners and fans like you. So if you just go to cscf.space/support and click that plainest day donate button, $10, $25, $50, $100 even. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it makes a big difference for us. And it's U.S. tax deductible. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And speaking of friends, my longest space friend, Michael Lane, who just received gifts of shiny, bright things from his pet crow, is here with us. Come on in, man. What's up with you?
Hey, how's things? It's a good day. It's been a good day.
Good.
Anything going on?
Suck. So yeah, we did okay.
Had a pretty interesting, unexpected call today. Thought it was going to be with a fan. Just we have fans of our project. Thought it was going to be with a fan. Turned out it was a $7 billion a year, 27,000 employees company that wanted to talk space elevators. I'll tell you, that has happened twice in our 25-year history. So that was kind of a surprise. It was a good day. Yeah.
Hope you can make it work this time.
Hopefully we can make it work this time.
Make it work this time. It's time.
And you, what's going on with you? Yes, for sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What's going on with you?
I'm still working on a proposal to Johnson Space Center and the Texas A&M University over use of their facility to do all sorts of interesting things like investor certification for companies that are ready to go to the next level.
Awesome.
And so we'll see what they say. We're just about putting it together. I think in another week we're going to be finally ready. I have to redo the budget. I think because we asked for didn't ask for a lot of money. We're doing a pilot project for 4 months, and I think we talked about it today as a little undercapitalized. So we're going to. So I'm reworking the budget now and say, this is it. This is work. This is exactly what we're going to do. Now we're going to do it. Here's the Gantt chart.
Are
So
you adding a 0 or a 20%?
I'm adding probably 50% to the
50%.
original
All right.
number we thought
Nice.
about it. That puts it into six figures. So, yeah, it'll be but it's a pilot project. We get done and we get good marks for it that could lead to a heck of a lot more,
Right.
especially when we're doing this thing. And and in addition to inviting investors to attend the final event, we're also going to be inviting everyone on the board of the Texas Space Commission.
Right.
Because we're going to show them we're doing what we intend to do in our proposal to them.
Yep.
So we're doing it already. So hey,
Well, fun. Very good.
Yeah,
Good luck.
That was my day, largely.
Right on. Well, let's jump in. What do we want? Starting with K2, is that right?
We got to race through it. So here's the interesting thing. K2 Space. I understand they're in the Northwest. Yeah. You know these guys?
No, I mean they're LA and Seattle area.
Okay.
I think they have like 12 people here and 122 people there, or something like that. Like it's got a local flavor, but it's not. I mean, we are the satellite capital of the world. I always want to remind everybody that kiss my ass. Was it Rocket City is Huntsville? But we're satellite cities, so a lot of people have to set stuff up here. But
the point is, Michael, they raised $500 million.
Yeah,
to boost their drive to big, powerful satellites.
Yeah.
So that's how they're putting it. It's Alan Boyle. It must be true.
It is. It's totally true. It's all Alan does nothing but impeccable work. So these guys am I right about this? They cannot fly without Starship. Is it that big a system, or can they get up with a Falcon Heavy? I don't think
they could go with a Falcon Heavy. I see the details of their. It's a 2-ton, 20 kilowatt satellite.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Right, and so. But inside of it, it carries, as it says there, a dozen undisclosed payload modules for multiple customers, including defense. So they're launching it up in one chunk and then deploying a whole bunch of stuff once it gets there. So I would imagine, 2-ton, you can do that on a Falcon Heavy. You might be able to do it on a Falcon 9.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, good. Happy to have them, folks. Like that they're here.
And of course. Yeah. I don't have a number here, but I just want very quickly. Rocket Lab, of course, back in the news. They just keep making deals, and we just last week we talked about the Alaska deal. They're going to launch 8 suborbitals from the Alaska base, but this is for their regular base, wherever that is, Rocket Lab Launch Complex 1.
Isn't that out of? The Atlantic, isn't that Mars? Mid-Atlantic.
Yep. It's that one.
Yeah.
It's that one. Anyway, they secured a multi-launch deal with IQPS for 3 dedicated missions. Again, no number associated with this, but contract's a contract. It's not pocket. It's not, chump change.
Right.
Yeah.
Good on them. Love to see them growing, especially with. Falcon 9 grounded after 2029 to private customers, right? We need don't just want anymore, need Rocket Lab to come online and fill that gap. Otherwise, we're going to be going backwards.
I think they're going to do that. Now, here's an interesting one, and it's weird because it's space news, and I've got the whole article.
Praise Jesus. Oh, it's the beginning of the month. It's the beginning of the month. They have a 5 limit.
Right. But I took screenshots of this one in case they change their mind at the last second, But but Space Force awarded all points, $250 million to expand satellite processing at Vandenberg. I guess this is part of the big plan to beef up Vandenberg. I know they need a lot of upgrading and get new capabilities, to have a future.
I don't know either of these companies. All Points or Astrotech.
I know.
Yeah.
Who are these guys? They must be like old-time defense contractors or something, and we just don't
Yeah.
follow much.
Focused exclusively in the California market. I don't know.
Right. And the government sector,
Yeah.
So
I'm going to read this piece though because I think it's interesting. The
Okay.
company's space prep business holds a 65-acre, 50-year NASA land lease at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where it is developing more than 500,000 square feet of processing and logistics space.
Right.
So
of course,
organizations we've never heard of are getting 50-year contracts, and good for them, right? Like, cool.
But some people that never heard of you before recently are approaching you today. So hey,
right. Yep, it happens.
It's our turn, man.
Yep.
It's our turn. I see Jason's here. Hey, Jason, welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Okay. Now again, now I got the twofer because we know that there's a Falcon 9 stage that was shot at the moon a while back, for something. And now supposedly Wednesday morning, it's going to go splat into the moon. Mm-hmm. And just so happens that this South Korean launch company has their first lunar orbiter called Danuri, and it just happens to be in the right place to catch this thing when it augers in.
That is cool.
And they're going to record it all.
That is cool. I did not know about this until you posted it here. That is exciting. I think that's really important. No, I'm reading this for the first time. That's really cool. That is super crazy lucky.
Yep, they have a high-resolution lunar terrain imager camera, and they're going to film the moment of impact. So if they do it in real slow-mo, it's going to be some amazing data that comes back. I hope the rest of the hoi polloi like us get to see that sooner or later, because we'll put it out here for everybody. I want, that's going to be the coolest damn thing.
It's pretty damn important data. The only thing like it, was it the LROX mission? Do I have the right initials? The one that slammed into the South Pole and identified all the water, or the Clementine mission prior to that? Like we have an N of 1, maybe an N of 2, and people are betting billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on a lunar infrastructure that we don't know for sure has as much water as we hope it does, right? So this is a super important capture if they can get it.
And as Jason suggests, there was something supposedly that happened during Apollo where one of the upper stage LEMs was deliberately, put down to slam into the moon. And according to all the instruments that we had there at the time that they put down, like the ALSET package, they said the moon rang like a gong for like a couple of hours or something. I'd like to see if that happens again.
Yeah, that's Alcross. Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that. But you know that the wackos turned that into a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
We don't push that. We don't push that. All right.
If it happens again, it's not a coincidence, is it?
Right. Maybe it is hollow. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so, but maybe. It
doesn't have to be hollow. It just has to have a funny result that no one was expecting that requires some looking into. Doesn't mean the moon's hollow. It doesn't mean any of it. But it's just the way the minerals line up. I don't know.
All right.
Okay, next.
Let's go into irony central here, because
I was
chuckling about this.
Because remember all the hype about this launch.
We're
going to save the Swift mission. We have this. It's this brilliant thing we figured out,
right?
And then the launch only half failed. It got the payload up there, but not very well.
Right.
Now they're trying to figure out how to save it, and now they think they have a way to do it. Apparently, it just. You can't make this up.
No. This was a rescue mission that needs a rescue mission. I know some of the folks that used to work at Catalyst, and I know when they left, and I know roughly why. And it was like, this is a terrible idea. Like, this mission came together very quickly. I'm curious what our insurance guy has to say about this. So
Yeah.
listen up, Luke. I think this one falls into your territory, but the folks, when was it Starfish, their very first otter pup that went
Mhm.
up, it tumbled for weeks, and they were able to get it to untumble. And I wonder if Catalyst, because I think the Catalyst people know the the Starfish people.
Yep.
So I wonder if I mean, that's the value of a condensed ecosystem, that people can talk to each other. So I do wonder how they solved it, but I'm glad that they're solving, not solved.
Well,
Solving.
I guess it's just a lot of stuff for balancing in the communications link, or just putting this thing into a spin.
Mm-hmm.
3 reaction wheels that they use for pointing stop working.
Mm-hmm.
And they have problems with the cold gas thrusters for finer altitude control. Okay, well, what else can go on before and some guy's saying, no, hold my beer, I got this.
We'll
figure
fine.
This out.
Right.
Well, yes, it's going to be all right. We've done this before. Go on.
Right. With Starfish Otter Pop, what they wound up doing is opening and closing the arm at very specific times, so it would have gravity gradient stabilization for a second, and every time they did it, it slowed it down a tiny bit, and that's how they grabbed it. So hopefully these folks can do some magic there. I'd like to see Catalyst succeed with this, especially with its super short timeline and relatively low cost. It would be a big win if they can pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's a weird one, but maybe it's not so weird now as you look at it. Trump administration exempted SpaceX's Starlink from an FCC ban on foreign-made routers. Turns out SpaceX gets some of their routers from Vietnam, from a factory there.
Okay.
And it violates some FCC rule about importing foreign routers as some sort of national security risk. But they got a pass. The administration got a pass. Turns out, you read it a little more in depth, you find out that it's not the first time. Netgear has gotten a pass before. Amazon has gotten a pass.
Right.
And been given exemptions. It's expected that companies with strong Chinese ties will probably have the most trouble obtaining exemptions. I guess it just gives them a reason to dig a little deeper into things that are going on. Because routers have a lot of firmware in there that we don't know where it comes from.
Right.
We have more control over homegrown firms in that regard.
I would be fine with it. They're using it for Starlink. If it was StarGuard, I might have a real problem with that. It's a different beast, a different client, right?
Yep.
If this is just serving somebody's home internet in Montana, I don't feel like that is a national security problem.
No.
Yeah.
But don't we have a launch facility somewhere for defense?
Okay, for sure we do. And we definitely have a set of missiles out there. But again, Starlink is not the same as StarGuard. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. We're at 20 minutes in. We gotta zip through this.
Okay, we're going pretty well.
We're good.
Yep. So a while back, Interloon started building a partnership with Vermeer, which is an Iowa-based industrial equipment manufacturer, developing construction tools for use on the moon. We talked about this briefly because they didn't talk about it much. So I'm just putting this article in there because they're saying that Vermeer it could also support NASA's plans, and they're going to try to formally expand the partnership to focus on a bunch of other things that they have in mind now. They added a bunch of tasks to their their joint goals,
Mhm.
and they're going to try to bring other people in, and they think they can build something really interesting. So I just wanted to throw that update out there.
I think this is the most important piece of news this week. And I might even go so like in the last, several weeks. Everybody wants to talk about rockets, and I love talking about rockets. You like talking about rockets.
Yes,
But
you do.
but bulldozing on the yes, I do. But bulldozers on the moon, like that's a real thing, right? If we
Yep.
can figure out that tech, that's civilization changing. So
Well, yeah. Bulldozers use those for one thing, basically, and it's a damned important one, and it's going to be necessary. There'll be lots of robot operated bulldozers on the moon before there'll be, a lot of an equal number of people.
Right. I mean, you're always saying every time you see a graphic of a moon village or something, you're like, they're doing it wrong. Well, if you can look at a plane of the moon and see tread tracks but nothing on top, then they're doing it right.
Yep.
Nothing on top.
Yep. I'm going to do those videos. I'm figuring out a series of videos just called "You're Doing It Wrong," and I'm going to just. It's planned to be a little bit snarky, but very truthful.
Well, it fits your space skeptics persona that's been out there for a long time.
Yep.
So
and
I think
John said, "I will produce it," and I can't wait. We're gonna do that later this year. So hopefully later this year.
Yeah.
No, I'm more of a skeptic than a cynic. A cynic is someone who's given up.
Yeah.
By definition.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not giving up on anything.
No, not at all.
Okay. Let's get this done. We're on the home stretch.
Right.
So you saw that stuff from Vermeer, and but then right in the next article, it's like CASA and NASA say, hold our beer. We're gonna do stuff too. They're gonna build a sustainable lunar base together. So that's interesting. Korea Aerospace Administration and NASA are talking about cooperation for building the base.
And reminding everybody, CASA, Korean Aerospace Administration, it's only 3 years old, 2 years old, 4 years old. Like it is brand new. For them to kind of get in the game with NASA is a really big deal. But also reminding you, they have a very strong math and sciences culture, and they have been working. I think it's called KAIST, KAIST. I can't remember what the initials stand for. KAIST has been working with the United Arab Emirates for at least 10 years on a Mars mission, a Mars settlement. So they're not new at the game, but the organization of CASA is new. And it's a big move for them. It's a very bold move for them to do this.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Next, I want to get through this. Next up is my favorite story of the day. DARPA. You never see me say that's my favorite agency in the world, but DARPA is plans to get nuclear power down to the size of a AA battery. They got 7 teams competing on this. It's called a RADS to Watts program. And they want to get nuclear power down to this little thing. So it'd be a AA battery that lasts for years or even decades without recharging. Now, can you imagine what the smartphone manufacturers would do with something like that?
Right.
It's truly unique, and it's truly disposable at the end of that. So you could say, okay, you can power your smartphone for as long as you want. If you really do, it's going to standardize batteries, because now if you want to get a new smartphone, you should have the ability to repair, the ability to open that thing up and put your battery in it. And so new smartphones will cost a lot less because you won't need the battery. You have one. It's still good especially if it's good for decades.
Right. You can will it to your children. Yeah.
If this thing comes out and I get a phone with that thing in it, I'm only going to need one.
Right. That's cool.
Assuming I have 20 some odd years to go, I'm only going to need one.
Right. You're going to will, like, my mom is going to will her battery to me. Right. That's
right. That would be it.
I love this. I had not seen this one either. So this was
that would revolutionize a whole bunch of things, especially if it's not all that expensive.
Right.
Everything that's battery operated,
Keep going.
Okay. I'm not going to say who I'm voting for in the primary for governor of the state of Florida, but one of the guys I am considering is Byron Donalds, currently a congressman from Florida. He's very popular. He's considered a front runner in the race right now. But I only put this on here because he is really laying it out for space. He wants to expand Florida's space economy in multiple ways.
Wow.
He wants to make Florida the world headquarters for space exploration, because I don't know if that's a direct response to the stuff that's going on in Texas.
Right.
I hope it is.
Yeah.
I'm surely going to get one of his spokes droids and try to hold their feet to the fire on that, because I think in some ways Florida should be emulating Texas. Why don't we have a Florida Space Commission? Technically, we do. We have Space Florida, but they don't have a recently announced $300 million tranche of money to award to bring and keep companies like the ones we talk about every week to Florida. Right. I think there should be some competition in that regard. I am applying for a Texas Space Commission grant, but hey, why can't I double down and apply for one in Florida too? Why not?
For sure.
Yeah. I can say the center. Are we hiring?
Right. Yeah.
In Florida and Texas. That would be great.
Love it. Washington does not have these programs, and I think it harms us. So good for Florida, good for Texas, not so good for Washington.
Right. Now, this is more of an op-ed piece. I'll just leave it out there. They say AI is now ready to run spacecraft, but is the industry ready for that? Just asking that question. I'm like that too. I'm like, I don't know. It's like I was reminded of that scene in The Right Stuff where they said, "Hey, this is the final version of the capsule," and they're going, "Well, we can't control it. We want a window." It's like, there was no AI there. They were going to control the whole thing all the way up and all the way down, right?
It'll be fine. Don't worry. Trust us. Trust us. All right, got to move on here. On.
Last one of the day.
Okay.
The last one of the day. No, that is the last one of the day. I think we got it. I think we got it all. We got through it.
Let's
in record time, dude. Shit, that's good.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun. Let's bring out our guest. Our guest tonight, I want to pronounce this correctly, is Yuck-Chi Chan. He's the founder and CEO of Charter Space, which they say is powering the future of space finance, and involves, I'm sure all sorts of different funding mechanisms, but especially we're going to talk about insurance. So, which is vitally important for the industry going forward. Mr. Chan, come on in, sir.
Hey, fellas. Good evening.
How you doing? How's LA?
Warm, very warm. Yeah. But it is California, so what do you expect?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's start right out. Usually, what we do first is we like to ask you. You want to talk about your company. We talk about everything you're doing, but start with just a minute or two with kind of your origin story. How did you get here, doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I would say it's a very non-linear path. So I grew up in Singapore, and so in Singapore we have we call it national service. You might call it draft. So I started my life as a logistics officer with the Army Engineers. I primarily worked on mechanized systems, so MBTs, IFEs, APCs, that sort of thing. Anything tracks and guns. So that's what I did for a little while, and it was a ton of fun. I grew up building those little scale models of tanks and such. So it was a real dream come true for me. After I got out of the military, I went to law school and I specialized in space law. And with that, I did mostly government advisory work. So I worked with a couple of developing nations to help them draft space legislation and space policy. I worked with some NGOs. I testified at the UN on space sustainability policy and sort of international law. But I never I never really liked being as far removed from technology as I was when I was a lawyer. So first chance I got, I jumped ship. I joined the industry as a mission manager. So combining the two backgrounds I had on the engineering as well as the legal and regulatory fronts. And as a mission manager, I got my feet really wet on all the nitty gritty of actually delivering a satellite and bringing it to orbit. And so it's really based off of my experiences as a mission manager that I started shorter. Tom, like you mentioned, we're powering the future of space finance. The way that we do that, first and foremost, is by proliferating insurance, making insurance more accessible, easier for everybody to obtain, because that is what lays the foundation for a robust and resilient space economy.
Okay, so let's talk about how you make insurance work, because that's always been a tough thing. Coming up, talking about this industry and reporting on it for 20 years now, Michael. We've been writing about this and talking about it, and insurance was always the most incredibly difficult thing to prove a case for, where an insurance company might want to actually jump in. That's and the risks are really, really high, and the giggle factor was really, really high still. And so a lot of guys, if they did anything at all, they went through what they call a captive, which I know you know what that is. So and that's all we could do for forever. So what are you doing that's making this work?
That is a good question. So, and to clarify for your audience, a captive is a really interesting sort of insurance invention. Basically, it's like an internal insurance company. So a really large company with significant amounts of capital and cash on hand can stand up basically their own personal insurance company that just insures them. And that saves you a ton of effort in terms of having to go out to the market and buy insurance on the commercial market, where you're basically at the whims and fancies of what the commercial market chooses to price your premium at. You're insulated from essentially market fluctuations, but the drawback is that it is, well, obviously there's a huge amount of overhead and admin cost, and you can't just well, if you do suffer a loss, you have to pay it out. And so it's an interesting structure. It's got a bunch of tax benefits to it as well, which is why a lot of bigger corporations enjoy using it. But it is challenging. But the reason why a lot of folks, I think, default to the captives is because the risk is very unique and it's difficult to explain, right? Especially with underwriters who aren't necessarily well versed in the sector, but also your specific technology. And so what we do is we essentially make that translation effort a little bit easier. We have an entire sort of risk analysis and systems engineering tool stack internally, where we like to think of it as a communications role, right? We take new technologies, or we work with new companies that are building new things, or have novel mission concepts, and we essentially help to translate their risk a lot better for various commercial markets that are interested in space, but need a little bit of, they need a little bit of help to really get to grips with the risk in a timeline and in a manner that helps them feel comfortable with actually essentially making that bet. So we work with the 6 largest markets in the world. We have access to over $400 million in insurable capacity, so we can insure pretty much everything. And there are a couple of news stories that you guys mentioned earlier that I want to touch on. So one of the benefits is that we can work on very, very novel technologies. Space-based nuclear is definitely one of them. So I actually saw my friend Staff get quoted. Staff is the CEO of Project Omega. So I've known him for a good few years, and he's a great guy. But then also, in terms of novel mission concepts and new and interesting sort of form factors. So something that's never flown before, right? Has no flight heritage.
Right.
It's challenging for you to guess what the risk would be. With us, you don't have to guess. We take a ton of the engineering data and engineering artifacts in around how the satellite was designed, manufactured, assembled, integrated, and tested, and we make that data explicable to the underwriters so that they can get to confidence a lot faster.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, Tom. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to just say, Jason has a couple of questions. You want to know how risk is handled in space? What are the qualifications for risk? You've already touched on that. And he's wondering, does it follow in any way the shipping example?
Yeah. So this is actually one of my favorite stories in and around sort of how the shipping industry got started and how, the story of Lloyd's, how Lloyd's as an institution got started. Yeah, which is, by the way, still the world's foremost market for any type of weird risk, including space. So we work with a bunch of Lloyd's markets. But how Lloyd got started, it was essentially a coffee house where merchants and sailors would gather and they trade stories, and they eventually became effectively an intelligence hub for figuring out what was actually happening in the high seas. And then from there, actually, the concept of insurance started with mutual funds, and how mutual funds got started were effectively death pools. These sailors and merchants would bet against each other. Jim's a moron; he's going to run his ship aground, or Sam's a great navigator; he'll be able to get back no problem. He'll probably shave some time off. So that's actually how insurance got started: betting pools that then transformed into mutual funds, which then evolved into modern sort of insurance infrastructure we saw today. But yeah, I like shipping as an example because I think there's a lot of corollaries between, there's a lot of parallels between where we are today with space and where shipping was in the late 17th century, right? It's exciting, it's new. We're on the cusp of this massive explosion of sort of commercialization and commercial potential, but we just don't know how to price the risk. And so because of that, the means for additional forms of capital to flow into the market are limited. You can't get a loan on a thing that you're launching in space, because if it breaks, what are you going to recover, right? But with an insurance policy, you have that first layer of risk transfer and that basic security that then allows a bank or a credit lender or somebody with a little bit of extra cash but doesn't want to invest in an equity round, that person can now feel safe enough to participate, which is important because as much money is being pumped into VC and as much money is being allocated to government R&D funding, there is a whole universe of financial instruments out there that aren't even looking at space as a potential destination. Because
give a scope on that, because it's a big number.
It is a big number. So the private credit market, and by its very nature, the private credit market is difficult to quantify because it is private, right? But the estimates are upwards of $1.8 trillion as of last year. And private credit really exploded in popularity after the global financial crisis as a new destination for private capital to be invested into and to seek better than ordinary returns. And so there's a lot of money out there for private credit, which for those who aren't familiar, it's essentially lending to businesses that would not traditionally qualify for a bank loan, right? It's kind of like the private equity of lending. And so, there's that, but there's also actual private equity that does not want to participate in space because it's still viewed as too frontier of a sector. And then there's everything else, right? Asset-backed lending, insurance-linked securities, all forms of derivatives and additional sort of secondary and tertiary instruments. Like there's a whole universe of additional capital out there.
Let's kind of narrow the scope for this, right? We're launching. We've got a mission going up in November. It's the world's first dedicated space elevator test, so we're pretty excited about it. There's so much that can go wrong, right? We're launching on the riskiest rocket in the world. We're going off of InnoSpace. Hasn't had a successful launch yet. The cards are stacked against us. I was probably not going to bother with insurance because I didn't think anybody would insure us, and I felt like the premium is probably worth more than the rocket is. So there's that. So what do you say to somebody like me? And then the other side of it, Amazon Leo's got a 5100 satellite constellation in development. What do you say to those two that are very, very different?
Well, I mean, there's two aspects to running an insurance company, right? There's the actual some math of it, but then there's also, the business aspect of it, right? So it's something that isn't uncommon actually across all sectors of insurance is, you might be willing to take on a slightly worse risk than you'd otherwise prefer in order to maintain and build a business relationship. So there's obviously that aspect, and we view ourselves as being sort of but we like to build ourselves into becoming a pillar of the space community, and that we want to help everybody get off the ground to begin with, and whether that's with an insurance policy to help secure some investment, or on your 50th launch, and you want to make sure that it's exactly correct. And so that's how we view ourselves. And so there's we try and work with as many folks as we can. Now, that having been said, right, I think that taking unnecessary risk by using potentially unproven flight hardware or unproven launch providers is adding just additional volatility and additional uncertainty into the mix. I think space is hard, right? And so there's so much already that you can't control for. Why add more? And I think this all goes back to my grand thesis of space economics as a whole, which is space has a money problem. There really isn't a whole lot of capital. It's a very closed off economy, right? Because there's only really two sources of additional new funding. It's limited equity investment, both on the private side as well as some limited public markets participation, and then there's government funding, which is capricious and forever beholden to power the powers that be. And so because of that, what I've noted, and this was what sort of actually led to the original insight that got me starting shorter, everybody is cash strapped. Everybody makes decisions with the assumption that there may not be more capital on the way, right? And so that then leads to what I call a proliferation of short-term thinking, right? Because we are, and that's it's difficult not to fall into that cognitive trap, right? I want to know where I don't have a guarantee that I'm going to be able to raise my next round, or I don't have a guarantee that this next contract will hit. And so, it's kind of like, I gotta make sure that I can stretch my dollar as far as possible. But then what that leads to is, we procure, automotive grade components where we really shouldn't, right? We skip testing where we really shouldn't. We, design for cost efficiency rather than reliability. And then reliability means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? Like, I'm not saying that you over engineer things, because that's obviously also not an ideal outcome. But I do think that there is a lot of thinking. There is a proliferation of short-term thinking in the space industry, especially when it comes to technical decisions, wherein we optimize for potentially the wrong thing, or we optimize for cost when we really shouldn't.
Right, because we got this very evil pyramid, fast, cheap, or good, and
the
industry tends to focus on fast and cheap. Unless you're NASA, then it's good, and we don't care what the price tag is, right? And we don't care how fast it goes, right? So no, it's a definite constraint. And we made the decision, right? Do I like it? No. Would I choose a different path? Yes. Do I have enough money in the checking account to make the luxury choice that I want? Absolutely not. So
so that's my point, right? Like, I think there's a misalignment in incentives between capital providers and innovators and companies, and it's mostly because everybody has a different set of incentives, right? If you look at what venture capital requires, right, which is generally speaking, it's a 10-year fund life cycle, and so they need to see a payout within a certain amount of time. It's just not necessarily very patient, and so because of that lack of patience, you then optimized towards speed, and
Mhm.
if you can't get it fast and good, you got to go cheap and fast, and so then you end up with more failures than you would otherwise have had to take on. One of our underwriting partners actually put it really, really well. Over the course of his 20-something year career in space insurance, he has had to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars worth in claims over hundreds of dollars worth of parts and components.
Oh,
And
God.
yeah, it's painful, right?
Yeah.
But and you think about it, it is rough. But that's why we need a realignment, and we need new sources of capital that are patient, that have different incentives, that are able and willing to go the distance, not because going the distance is not because they're nice about it, but because going the distance is objectively the correct way of approaching
Right.
these problems. And it's I mean, there's this old axiom from the military, right? Like, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, okay. So you track this by people basically uploading their files to you. You do an evaluation of, well, this is a cut rate part. That's a cut rate part. You start adding up the risks of this one plus this one. Maybe not plus, maybe it's multiplied, and they're like, "Whoa, we're not going to do that one." I mean, is that the level that you dig into people's systems? Are
Essentially.
people willing to send you their files for that level of detail?
Yeah, so it's well, I mean, it's kind of you don't have to be willing to, but if you don't, so here's the thing: I like to think that I can insure pretty much everything, no matter how little or how much you submit, right?
Okay.
But ultimately, what I'm trying to control for is risk and uncertainty. The less you submit, the more gaps I have, the worse the price will be, because I naturally have to assume the worst,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Of course.
And so, it's much like with health insurance, or with car insurance, or any of these other sorts of we call them personal lines in the industry. So
Yeah.
with any of these personal lines, the more you submit, obviously sometimes that data can be used against you, and so there's a natural sort of reticence against that. But I'll touch on the alignment of incentives in space insurance in a second, of why it's actually a good thing to reveal more, so long as you have nothing to hide. But if you send me less, I can probably still make it work. It's just going to be more expensive. In terms of what we actually do, so we aren't underwriters ourselves. We are brokers. And so we're nationally licensed in all 50 states. We can transact business throughout the US, and we have access to international markets as well as domestic carriers. Now, domestic carriers here in the US, or domestic insurance companies, like, they don't really do a whole lot of space. So we typically have to go to European insurance companies, because they're the ones who actually have a history of underwriting space, and they're comfortable with that category of risk. So the way that we do it is folks upload their data to us, and then we present that data in a way that is easier for the underwriters to get a grip on. But we don't fundamentally do any of the risk determination ourselves. We suggest, but we do not. Well, in insurance terminology, we don't hold the pen. We don't decide what the price is. All we can do is showcase as much information as we can, which is why I say, if you submit less data to me, that's what I'll show. But it might not be that great.
I like that. I can live with that. So, our satellite's not very big. It's not very heavy. It's not very expensive. We could get by on $100,000. A policy. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word all of a sudden. We could get by on that. Like, ours is not. We're risking, but that would be kind of nice. I'm not asking you for like a quote here, and this is recorded, but I'm not going to hold you to it. What kind of range would $100,000 policy be?
So that's actually a bit of a tricky question, because
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
We actually don't see a whole lot of policies for $100,000.
Why would you? Yes. Yeah.
And this actually is part of what makes us sort of interesting within the wider sort of landscape, because space insurance as a concept has existed since 1965. Lloyd's underwrote Intelsat 1 in 1965. Yeah, so it actually dates back a good long while. Now, the historical paradigm of how insurance is done in space is it assumes you have a big geobird that is going to be amortized over 15,
Right.
20, 30
Yeah.
years. And so it's a multi-$100 million asset, and you have to pay out premiums every single year that it's up there. And first year is always more expensive. Second year onwards, the rate drops off. But essentially, the assumption is that you're going to be paying out millions and millions and millions in premiums. And so it made sense to actually put in all the effort that it takes to underwrite it, because it takes a lot of effort to underwrite a satellite.
Mm-hmm.
With the new paradigm of what what we call broadly new space, the new paradigm of how new space operates, small sats are the most popular form factor, significantly cheaper satellites deployed in larger constellations. The accumulative value of the entire constellation could match what a geobird used to be worth, but
Right.
at the individual per vehicle level, it's a lot cheaper. And so the problem is that it still takes a lot of effort to underwrite these smaller satellites, even if they're 1 to 2 orders of magnitude cheaper, and therefore generate significantly less premium. And so what we do is by making the entire process a lot more efficient, we actually bring the threshold down for what an insurance policy would cost. So all that background to contextualize why I can't really give you an indicative price, because we haven't seen a whole lot of $100,000 policies, not just in our line of work, but also just in history. It's been up until, I would be so daring as to say, up until we came along, you wouldn't be able to get a quote for yourself.
Right, absolutely, 100%. I'm gonna make a prediction, and we've only got 9 minutes left, so I want to get back to you quickly. But I'm gonna make a prediction that I believe this. This is my thesis. I believe that there's going to be a material sciences boom, material sciences testing on orbit. You're going to get a lot of satellites going up at the $200, $300, $400,000 price tag that's only doing material sciences evaluation, not biotech, because that's harder and that's bigger, but material sciences evaluation is going to be a thing. And I think there's going to be a lot of $200,000 and $500,000 satellites going into the sky. I'm on the bottom end of that, but I see it as material sciences as a service, material science testing it as a service. So I'm not, this isn't Planet Lab with a super sophisticated camera system. This is, did it break or not break? Right. That's so anyway, I just think that that's coming. So you should be thinking about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're tremendously excited about the explosion in different types of applications going to space. Right, it's a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of explosion,
my least favorite word.
Here's the thing. I just want to. I'm getting a picture in my head of what you guys do and how you do it. It looks really great. I'd love to hear some numbers of the types of deals you're doing, not specific companies, but just kind of. Is it mostly satellites? Is it? Do you insure launchers? Do you insure things like that? But I really want to go because we don't have a lot of time left. How does all of this that you just explained to us extend to the moon?
Yeah, and it's really funny. The journey starts right here on Earth. So something that I think we need to work we need to work on our comms a little bit more, because this isn't actually very obvious. We actually insure space companies on the ground for all their regular business insurance needs. So you rent a facility, you need general liability insurance, we can do that. Now we started offering that as a convenience service because we realized a lot of space companies actually have a really tough time getting just regular business insurance or workers' comp or whatever. So we do that. So that's where the journey starts, right? And then, as a company starts moving towards, actually manufacturing and testing, we'll cover them all the way through. We'll ensure the test sites, when they're actually finally ready to ship real flight hardware to the launch pad, we'll cover the actual transit and transportation elements. So that's what we call pre-launch coverage, all the way through to integration into the launch vehicle. The launch itself, obviously, which is a binary event. It either blows up or it doesn't blow up, or it delivers to the correct location or it doesn't deliver to the correct location, right? And then that begins the on-orbit sort of post-separation coverage phase, which is where we specialize in, right? That's the thing that our technology is best at, because we can estimate what is the likelihood of risk or what is the likelihood of failure due to intrinsic system faults better than anybody else in the world, and then that carries on. So the neat thing is that systems engineering doesn't really distinguish between a satellite or a lander or whatever. Like, it's all built on the same principles, right? It's still a complex system. It's still a similar enough environment, and such that you undergo the same sorts of verification and validation sorts of procedures. And so going all the way out to the moon, essentially, we just have to underwrite a slightly different set of factors, but ultimately it's still the same underwriting framework. And it's still the same risk assessment framework. And so when we work with carriers and underwriters to present that information to them, it's couched in that sort of understanding of, this thing's going to space. These are the environmental considerations. These are the things that you should be thinking about. Here's all this data.
Okay. Sorry, there's just so
there's a lot. Yeah, it's
a lot. You take it in, you're like, okay, how do I process this? There is one thing I know we want to get to. We'll have more questions. I want to get to this before we go. We've got like 5 minutes left, so I want to get your take on, get your crystal ball and get your take from your perspective of this whole industry and what you're in your role in it. What does the future look like 5 years from now and 25 years from now? You'll probably look the same, by the way. I think you're.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I got recently asked by somebody. Somebody asked me. I was in a meeting with a congressman from Georgia, and he asked me how old I was, and he seemed genuinely surprised by my answer. I'm 31, by the way. But that was very flattering. Anyway, so 5 years from now, I think that insurance will have proliferated, and with that, we expect additional types of funding sources to come in. We at Shorter have started partnering with various private credit funds or other lease financing companies to actually start bringing them in and getting them comfortable with this category of risk, and we've essentially sort of provided them sort of a benchmark on which they can anchor how to price their loans, right? Because an insurance premium, if you think about it, they're actually underwriting against the same sort of thing. They're underwriting against the asset failing and being worthless. So we think that in 5 years, the market will significantly grow. We actually produced a report very recently that has not been published, so I can't cite the specific numbers, but it was a theoretical exercise of, if we took, for example, the marine or the aviation markets as comparables, right? So aircraft manufacturing, shipbuilding, and there's a significant amount of leverage and debt in those industries, and obviously there's significant insurance proliferation. If we took similar ratios of debt to cash investment, as well as debt to insurance in terms of insurable premium base, and then we applied that back to figure out what would the theoretical size of the space economy be if there was a lot more insurance available and therefore a lot more debt available. We noticed some very, very interesting things. One, independently arrived, the numbers actually line up quite well. There are certain ratios, you could even call them golden ratios, in terms of how all these different numbers relate to each other. And so based on those ratios, we would estimate that the space economy would more than double if there was sufficient insurance proliferation, which led to an injection of debt. The space economy would more than double. And to put a specific sort of to put a specific number on it, is roughly $10 billion worth of debt translates to about $100 billion worth of additional economic value as a whole. And so that's the SOAR ratio. It's a 1 to 10 leverage.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
You then draw that out to 25 years, right? As more types of applications come online, as new types of technologies get matured in space and so on and so forth. And honestly, I think that the growth will compound even further. If you think about how shipping was, 300 years ago versus where it is today, I think a lot of people, you think of like London as a financial hub, but it really started with, Lloyd's, and Lloyd's gave the security for the rest of the London financial market to really sort of stand up and bloom. And it was, what were they betting on to begin with? They were betting on maritime trade, right? And so you take that as a historical analogy and you apply that to space. I think we're just getting started.
Okay. One final thing, very, very quick. I'm going to put you on the spot probably, but you've done very well. I love the conversation. Is there any one thing you would want to tell young startup entrepreneurs in this industry how to actually, when they're building their business plans and they're building their technology, how to best look at their risk management so they can get a better deal from you?
That is a very good question. Look, everything is everything is some form of optimization exercise, right? You can build the safest thing in the world and it will cost you a bomb, right? But I will give you a very, very good insurance policy for that. Ultimately, I think actually the advice that I would give you, which is a little bit more holistic, is Semper Gumby, right? Stay flexible. There is a point at which insurability and reliability will become your most important thing. That might not necessarily be the goal to begin with. It may become the goal later, right? Stay flexible and be willing to adapt. And ultimately, think about insurance as essentially a guaranteed 1x return, or however, 1 or 0.95x return on your asset, which is more security than we can expect anywhere else, in any aspect of life, let alone something as dangerous as space. If you're comfortable foregoing that, then insurance may not be for you. If you aren't comfortable with going for that, then that might be something you want to optimize towards.
All right. On that, Yuk-Chi Chan, founder and CEO of Charter Space. This has been a fascinating conversation and a very hopeful conversation for a lot of people listening to this show in particular. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you want to come back someday. I think that would be because we could continue this talk for another hour. There's just so much interesting to discuss about this. Thank you so much for being here. Stick around for the post-show chat, and we'll see you in a minute.
Thank you.
Wow.
There's a lot. Yeah.
That was a lot. And there's so much more we could have talked about.
I'm going to be thinking about this for a while.
Yeah.
It's there's some conversation.
It's another one of those rare ones I'm going to have to listen to again.
Right.
Just to get it all in.
Yeah.
Like Ron Wiener, guys like that. Oh my God. Okay. Well, Thursday, we're all taking the night off because we've earned it. And we have a lot of things that we're working on, and we just want to focus on those. I've got an errand of mercy I need to run on Thursday as well. And so, but we will be back Monday, August 10, with all the greatest news and guests and hard-hitting commentary, and sprinkled with the occasional tomfoolery. 8 p.m. Eastern. For Michael Lane and Sean Key, I remain Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.